Hello again, welcome back. You made it through to this point, and after this, we're going to be getting our hands dirty and getting to the practical bits. But just before we do that, let's talk about the product development process and agile methodology. Okay, so the development process. What's the process to develop a product? How do we start? How do we go about it? There's something called the development circle. We'll get to that later. But for now, for the process, the first is idea generation. You need to know what it is you want to do. Think through the idea, figure it out, understand it, you know, talk through it with people and ask yourself if it's really good. But first, you need to generate the idea. You need to have that eureka. And it doesn't have to sound as brilliant as, how many persons expect it to be. It just needs to be the idea that can solve the problem in its roughest form, right? That's the very first bit. The next bit is the idea screening. Now, to screen your ideas, like I said earlier, you start talking to people. You do a survey. This is where research comes in even more. People assume you do research before and then you go straight to it. But you research after as well. You collect surveys. You talk to people. You do, simple tests and ask if what you're proposing is something they would like, if it's something they would pay for. We will get to the pay for bit a little later, but idea screening is the very next thing. Right after you're done screening your idea is concept development. How do you develop your process? How do you develop, what's the concept behind it? How will you take it? Who do you need to talk to? Who do you need to call? Who should be a part of your team? Who shouldn't be a part of your team? How many engineers do you need? How many designers do you need? Would you need a project manager? Would you need someone who is just strictly agile? All of those things would come in even as you develop the concept, as you begin to expand the idea, trying to bring it to life. You start figuring out the different classes or people you will need. So concept development and testing. As you bring all these people together, you start to test it. Along this line, you would have done something that someone would test, either a designed version of your work, it might not be the real thing, or documenting on Notion. Notion is a tool I didn't mention earlier in the last video, but it's something I think you want to pay attention to, because I've seen a lot of products actually raise funds by simply documenting their processes on Notion. The next bit is market strategy and business analysis. Now that you have done some testing, someone has tried it out, someone used it and it works, would they use it again? Do they like it? Do more people want to use it? Would they tell you that this is something I would pay for? You want to get that data. You want to analyze it. You want to see how the market perceives your idea. It's a bit risky at this point because this is where many people throw to the water and then it gets taken away, right? But it is necessary because you also want to be certain that the market wants you, right? You might like it. Do they like it, right? Right after that is the product development itself. You've done everything right. You've done your test with your demo. Now you need to build the product. This phase is where the development circle or the product life circle comes to play. The circle in itself has several steps we take in building the product, but that's a bit deeper. But since we're talking about the development process, let's conclude the process, shall we? The development circle in itself would just be a phase where you're working across different milestones, different things you need to achieve as you build the product itself, the real thing you want to send to market. Speaking of market, this is where we come to deployment. You ship it. Shipping sounds simple, but isn't really as simple, because here you are, you've built a product, but you might want to ensure that not everyone sees it in the first go. A group of people might have to see it in the beginning. They are called your beta testers. I'm sure you've seen products where it has beta written on the feature because it's not open to everyone, or they ask you that if you're interested in testing out this feature, subscribe, and then they would send you that feature specifically so you can test, right? Now, that's where beta testing comes to play. It's a process in deployment, right? It's a process in shipping the product to the market. The last process is the commercialization. Commercialization is making money, in the simplest term. Having someone pay for your product. I've seen products that are really brilliant and then they deploy, they go to market, they did everything right, but you see, when it's time for them to go from free model to paid model, people leave them. No one wants to pay. It's because they didn't think about the commercialization before they started. With this list, people assume you go from step 1 to step 7. However, you actually would write each of them and plan for each of them before you even start step 1, meaning you must have your commercialization plan before you even start, doing your idea screening. In the process of developing your idea, the question of how much will it cost, who would pay for it, will they pay for it, should come in, because commercialization is what really keeps a product or fades it away from the market. Because sometimes, building product could be cost intensive, managing a product could be cost intensive, and if you cannot generate funds, you would lose either the product, the customers, or even your investors. This is the product development process as it simply can be defined. Now, I mentioned agile development in the beginning. Let's just touch it in a little bit, just a little bit. This is simply the process used, by product team to ship the products or features in bits, managing how goals are achieved in its smallest form. That's what agile is about. So beyond the complex terms and the many complex decisions or definitions about, that are put out about agile, in the end, it's simply asking, how can we do this? How can we meet the minimum viable product? How can we do the smallest thing in the smallest time that can be useful to people? Agile tries to meet this by creating processes or methodologies, that allows this to happen. That's what Agile is, and that's the development process. In our class where we get to the practical bit, I would explain the product life cycle, and then I would show you how to document all of this. Till then, bye for now.